Welcome back to the Taylist of Movie Review. I am your co-host, Michael, and I'm joined again by the one, the only,
Adrian
Steve.
Steve Rogers. I don't know where.
I know I was going for. I was going for something. How are you doing
Steve from
today,
Blue's
Drew?
Clues. Good. How are you? Thanks
Doing
for having
good.
me back.
I miss Steve from Blue's Clues. Why can't you be Steve?
I tried, but it didn't work out.
Bummer.
It just couldn't
Maybe
happen.
next time.
Yeah. Godspeed.
So we watched Spider-Man 2, the second installment in
We
this
did.
crazy lineage of Spider-Man movies. This one, of course, again by Sam Raimi, and we are continuing the campy nature of this entire
Yes.
trilogy.
I don't know about you, but this was like peak Maguire for me.
Oh my goodness!
I feel like this is as good as it got.
Really?
Yes. We might disagree, but
I may have misspoke in the last podcast in regards to I can't wait for Spider-Man 2 since I remember it the most, I think is what I said.
Sure.
And I enjoyed it a lot more. Oh my goodness. How much cringe and just disappointment was on my face during the whole entire movie until like maybe the very end when like
Really?
we finally got the Doc Ock fight scene. That was the
do
only
you think
time
this
I was
is
like,
cringy? I'm excited for 3.
I agree in terms of how it holds up in 2021.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
man, I did not enjoy this movie at all.
At all? Really? Okay.
No.
Interesting.
I think the only times that really I enjoyed it was I don't even know. Maybe just some of the characters again that like actors that you haven't seen in a long time or have been in other installments, and then you see
Got
them
some
again.
nostalgia.
Like, yeah, well, I'm just thinking like Joel McHale. If you ever watched the show Community, he's in it. He's the bank teller in this. And I'm like, oh, hey, it's Joel
that's right.
McHale.
Uh-huh.
And then I don't know, maybe just enjoying the Doc Ock CGI and how it is amazing at some points, and at other points it's like he looks like a noodle.
Yeah. Some of the scenes with the practical arms they used, I think, aged pretty well. I don't know. I'm surprised you didn't like it as much. Maybe my expectations were a lot lower going in, and I was kind of not expecting it to be much, and I kind of got myself into the Raimi cheesy vibe. But I thought the Doc Ock was a much more villainous or much more scary villain than Green Goblin, just because
Really?
Green Goblin kind of looked like I love Defoe, but Green Goblin just looked so similar to the comic book interpretation, just like the mouth open at all times, and you and I are not so different. That type of voice, opposed to Sam Raimi just going all out like horror movie as soon as they start working on Doc.
Before we go too deep into the woods, I guess
yeah.
out of 8, what would you rate it, Drew?
Ooh. I would I think you'll probably disagree. I think I'll give it a 7 out of 8.
Wow.
I mean, there's some messed up motivations, but I thoroughly enjoyed it quite a bit. So what would you rate it?
I think I'd probably give it the same as Spider-Man 1, or maybe worse. Well, maybe not worse. I enjoy Alfred Molina as Doc Ock.
Okay.
But Willem Dafoe is kind of hard to beat as well. So I think 5.
5.
I'll give it a
Okay.
5.
All right.
5.5. How about that? 5.5.
Not quite a failing grade, but nearing that.
Basically a failing grade,
Yeah.
in my opinion. But
Okay.
yeah. Geez. Where do I start with this movie? Maybe we just start with the fact that we get a long like intro credits again of
That's
like
true.
everyone who worked on it, but at the same time it's like, oh, here's what happened last time in Spider-Man, which maybe that's kind of playing into the comic book vibe, but at the
They're
same
really
time,
proud of those animations.
yeah.
Had to
Which I
note
did
that.
like some of the transitions that they had in here. I think the one notable one that I really enjoyed that I thought was really cool was when Doc Ock was taking Peter to Harry's penthouse, and how they transition is they have the camera going into Peter's Spider-Man logo, which
Right.
sorry for the audience last time. I wasn't really showing off the shirt last time.
Nice.
But
I just noticed.
yeah,
That's
it was kind of zooming into the spider, and then the spider kind of, enveloped the screen, and then the black became kind of like the penthouse surrounded by darkness, and then brightened up and all that. I enjoyed that. That was really cool.
And then it was all downhill from that.
I think it was actually uphill at that point.
Oh, okay.
The train scene, interesting as well, but I think everything from the train scene after, I enjoyed a bit more. But everything before that was very much like either convenience or very much Raimi's style of filming a Spider-Man movie. Like, I don't know, the fact that Aunt May can hang onto an umbrella from a very tall building. And she's ripped, apparently. She's got guns of steel.
She's got very great upper arm strength, so that helps. I think the probably worst part for me was just motivations put in place of like Octavius wants to create like clean, cheap, renewable or somewhat renewable energy for a whole city, and then that doesn't go very well. So he kind of goes crazy to still try to make it work, but he's like robbing banks and like killing people to make his cheap energy plan work. So I don't know. I kept asking myself this whole movie, what would have happened if he actually got the machine built and it started working correctly?
He'd be sitting there his whole life while the arms are pushing the rays. What is this guy thinking? Like, he's like, I am a very brilliant scientist, and he doesn't think that the sun has a magnetic pole in any way, which then pulls everything, and which maybe his calculations came up with, maybe the magnetic pole or forces weren't great enough to pull a building in on itself and make it collapse.
Yes.
Along with the mass that comes with a tiny sun, which is a whole bunch of mass.
Right.
Which somehow pulls glass and everything else too.
But that's kind of the same story with Green Goblin, you know, like he's like, we gotta hurry up, give me this injection right away. You kind of have to have a poorly motivated, kind of stupid character in order to set up these comic book villains, and this was certainly part of that Sam Raimi stretch they have to make of like, so there's AI that helps him control the arms, but then the arms take over him because of is it the inhibitor chip?
The inhibitor chip. It's another rogue AI fear factor of just like, computers are taking over the world, just like Matrix or like War Games or anything else. You're just going to get these robot arms manipulating this man into making another giant sun, which...
It sounds funny on paper. But
it's
in
hilarious.
The movie, it kind of all takes itself serious enough, but not too serious for me. Like, I appreciate the way they started it off. Like, I think it was a kind of maybe obvious but inevitable plot device of like, okay, if he becomes Spider-Man, he's going to struggle to make time to be Spider-Man and also his everyday life, which I could kind of appreciate because I feel like with Superman and Batman in movies in the past, like they don't typically address that. Well, I mean, Bruce Wayne is rich, so he can just kind of be Batman as much as he wants and then go home and do whatever because he's got, billions and billions of dollars. But Pete is like trying to help people because responsibility, of course. And simultaneously, he's trying to deliver pizza on time for Joe, and he just can't do it. Which I was like,
he's got class at the same time as well.
Right.
Like, what's this guy thinking? He's got
I
the
always
college
found
class.
Yeah. I always found it funny how everyone's just being hard on him at the beginning of this. Everyone's just like, you didn't miss class today. You suck. We hate you. And then he meets his idol, Octavius, which he was hoping to do this paper on. And he's like, hey, Parker, you're lazy. You're not, you're not doing much.
I'm too busy for you and you're lazy. Go away. And then James Franco's just like, Harry Osborn's just like, no, Otto, I pay your bill.
Yeah.
You're going to let Pete do this. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll be nice now. And then Like, not a few moments later, come over to my place for dinner
Right.
with my wife.
Right. What have we been talking about for all this time? And yeah, like it didn't last very long, but I liked their dynamic before Doc went crazy. Just like I like that he wasn't the classic, like, instantly the fun professor who's happy to show the protagonist everything he does. At first he was like, no, I don't have time for this. You're a student and I've heard about you and you're lazy. Like, it starts off kind of bumpy and then they figure it out later and get closer and they're like, yeah, I mean, it was a cringy line, but they bonded on the, if you want a girl to like you, read her poetry. My wife cringed so hard when he said that. She was like, oh.
I love it. The very next scene is him getting like a poetry book, and then a couple scenes later is him like reciting poetry, or maybe a bunch later he starts reciting poetry to her. I'm like, to MJ, and just the choices they make. But hey, intelligence is not a privilege; it's a gift, and you got to use it for mankind, Peter.
That's right. You got to use it for the good of mankind.
As evil man destroys everything.
Like, I'm very, very excited to see him return in No Way Home because I think he was probably the highlight of this movie, despite his motivations being poor. That's on the screenplay. That's not on Alfred Molina. So,
yeah,
they're getting him back.
No, he definitely sells the arms really well. He makes it, or at least him plus the visual effects people and the people who made the IRL suit as well, somewhat IRL suit, parts of it, I guess. Definitely all came together really well in terms of selling. This guy has 8 limbs, and he's using them to the best of his ability after going through a traumatic experience and learning how he can move around the world with this whole entire new, I guess, lens in life. But and then just immediately goes to, I'm gonna rob a bank, and then steal money sacks that, and they're not even like bags of like paper bills, it's coins. Like, what are they, like dollar coins or something? Like, what kind of
that
bank
was certainly
are you going to?
that was certainly on the cheesier side. That didn't work as well. But
throwing bags at Peter at one point.
And how many banks are there in New York? And Pete happens to be at the exact right bank that Doc chooses to go to. I don't know. The one character that I believe is introduced in this film that is very memorable, which I'll applaud Sam Raimi for, is Mr. Dickovich, because he creates even side characters, even characters that don't really do much in the plot. Like, he makes them memorable, because I haven't seen this. I haven't seen this movie in years, but you just see his face and you've heard it before. You've seen the movie once, you know that guy. It's like the Rent guy. and he leaves an impact despite him being so insignificant to the grand scheme of things. Like, if this movie didn't need comic relief, but they put him in there anyway, of just like, what's high? Can I eat it? He just wants to get paid. I just love that character.
I've only got $20. Takes it.
Yeah.
For the week.
Right.
Okay.
He just grabs it. Similar to his boss, J. Jonah
Jameson.
J. Jonah, right. Like, he's just such a memorable character, and he has a bit more to do in the story. Like, in the last film, Green Goblin finds him, and he's like, where's the guy who takes pictures? But Dickovich I love because he basically is unaffected by everything else that goes on in the movie. Like, there's robberies, there's crime, and he doesn't care. The dude just wants his rent. Like, nothing else matters to him. He doesn't care about who Spider-Man is. All he wants is to get paid, and I respect that. I like having
the burdens of being a landlord. You're always just looking for the next dollar, making sure that you are getting the dollar for whoever is living in the place that you furnished up, or not even furnished up in the terms of Pete's new digs, where like the paint's falling off the walls and everything just looks cruddy, and there's only one bathroom that everyone shares.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I like that idea of the hero being broke and not being able to afford anything. Just like,
it makes sense, right? He's not charging a bill. He's not charging his services, which would make things a little bit more darker in regards to like, I'm not gonna save that person unless you pay me $50.
Yeah, that's more like The Boys or something.
Yeah, definitely a lot like VOT News or VOT Network or just VOT, I think, in general.
Sure.
Very much like some huge conglomerate that pays off superheroes for doing their job.
If Mr. Djokovic was Spider-Man, he would be asking for money.
Can you imagine Djokovic in a Spider-Man suit swinging around telling everyone, give me rent.
He's grabbing rent with his web.
Give me rent.
He's grabbing all the money. So those are things I like, at least about the first half. What did you not like?
My goodness. There's a lot of weird things. I mean, like I said before, kind of weird that Aunt May can hold on to an umbrella on top of a building that
that's way out there.
Doc Ock put her up on, and she's kind of just like, okay, I guess I'll hang on to this for a bit.
Right.
Along with like a lot of things that didn't really age well, like immediately after that, when Spider-Man's swinging away and like there's a whole bunch of girls in very tight dresses, just like, it's Spider-Man. Right. Like, did we need this scene?
There was some really like, I don't know what those shots were for, but they did not hold up very well. It's just a lot of it's Spider-Man.
Yeah. Or like the Ben Parker hallucination scenes. Like, why do we have this in the movie as well? Like, we get that Peter's struggling, he's down on his luck to the point where like, I don't know where the writers were going with, oh yeah, Peter just loses his powers. I still haven't figured out why he loses his powers. Like, if it's a chemical thing, yeah, maybe like the fact that he's so down on his luck that his body's just rejecting his spider powers, maybe. But even still, like, oh yeah, I just can't web sling anymore, and it hurts to fall off of buildings and onto dumpsters. Like, which it hurt before, but now it just really hurts, and now it's just even more funny to watch.
Is this the one where he like falls from like 40 stories onto it? Twice. Yeah, there's one shot in particular I remember laughing hysterically at. See, I was enjoying it despite it being stupid, but there's a scene where he flies, he's really high, and he falls like the entire length of this Empire State Building and lands on a, AC vent. And I was like, that would be just instant death. There would be nothing left.
Yeah, I think there's one where I think it's the night that he loses it, he jumps, and then web doesn't happen, and he falls on a few dumpsters. And then there's the second one that's more meme-worthy, where he falls and lands on like a car or two cars, and he's like, oh, my back.
My back. Yeah.
Oh, my back.
Right. It's very quotable. I find myself quoting this movie a lot. But you're bringing this up. I didn't realize until hindsight. I was like, wait, there was a reason he lost his powers, wasn't there? And now I'm trying to think back. I was like, no, he just kind of lost them for no reason.
He runs out of the will to be Spider-Man at one point. So then it's just
he lost the will.
Okay. Or like,
yeah, he has the
Sam
montage
Raimi,
of like him trying to not be Spider-Man,
which I enjoyed in a way. Like, you have like the cops chasing some robber down the street, and then you have him turn like kind of shocked a little bit, and then he starts eating a hot dog. Like, that was funny.
Without a hot dog in it. I don't know if you caught that. It's just bread. There's nothing else. But yeah, every time we go to Costco and get a hot dog, I intentionally try to eat like he does, where you're like staring off at the cops and
it was nice to also like pair it with like raindrops keep falling on my head, except like it's kind of like a freeing experience for him. So I don't know whether it's really as appropriate, but it is like, it's a nice levity for the character in a way. He gets so much crap the whole entire like movie. Like, by the way, it's 25 minutes of this movie of him not being Spider-Man, and then we get Spider-Man.
Wow.
Like, from the time the movie starts until he finally does some Spider-Man stuff, it's 25 minutes of just Peter Parker, which it's not bad in terms of developing the character.
Yeah.
But if you're going to call the movie Spider-Man
That's
2,
true.
maybe at least have some Spider-Man near the beginning, or at least like sprinkle some in, like even if it's him. Well, okay, I guess to be fair, he does at the very beginning deliver pizzas. You get a little bit of that.
That's true.
So, but like between that and the next time he's Spider-Man, pizza time. I'm not paying for that.
We have to say that every time we get pizza. That's how much we quote. This movie has impacted our culture forever.
I'd say all the Spider-Man, like all the Raimi series, is nothing but memes, and it's great.
Yes, it's wonderful.
But it's unfortunate that it doesn't age well, at least in terms of like being a fantastic movie, in my opinion. It's good, but it could be so much better.
There's a certain amount of disbelief you have to suspend, and this movie's pushing it. You know, you have to really, really suspend a lot, because you're just bringing this up. It's like, we needed the character to be bad at doing all things, so we decided his powers just stopped working for some reason. Helps the plot, I guess, but there's no rhyme or reason. Would have been interesting if he did something. I was trying to think of like the sun getting out of control, like throws off his DNA, and that prevents his web powers or something. I don't know. Could have done something.
It definitely made him stupider.
Yeah.
What really made me angry at one point was this is just coming from an engineer. So he finally gets to go to his college class with Dr. Connors.
Right.
And Dr. Connors is like, now what are the eigenvalues for this equation right here? In which eigenvalues, they're kind of control points in an equation. I won't bore you too much with it. Peter answers with 0.23 electron volts, which is not the right answer because eigenvalues are not measured in voltage. They're unitless.
Only Mike would know this. But
they're unitless.
Interesting.
The question and the answer did not go well together, and I was just very angry at that point.
I could imagine if you knew that type of thing, that would be frustrating. Might as well have been like, how many electron volts are needed for this equation? And then he goes, the French Revolution.
Basically, that's what happens. Doug Connors is like, yes, good job, Peter. It's like, no.
My wife kept saying, like, what's the incentive for him to stay a Spider-Man? Like, it just seems to ruin his life. Why not just, I guess, Uncle Ben telling him to have, great power, great responsibility. But aside from that, she was kind of like, Uncle Ben's dead, like, why don't you just find a good job, get a career, save some money, and just be like, okay, if I want to grab something on the other side of the room, I'll use my web shooter, but you should just not save people. Then there wouldn't be a movie.
Very true. Yeah, that was another thing that's a good point. I thought the same thing as well. Just why not give up being Spider-Man? Besides being tormented by dead Uncle Ben. But
how long can you keep that up? We never got a Spider-Man 4. Like at age 50, does this guy just be like, I can't save people anymore. I'm just too old.
That's what I kind of hope in No Way Home is like he's got the powers, but he's kind of more of like a guidance type of guy. Like, I guess I'll jump in if like it really like it's the end of the world. We really I need to step in and help out. But otherwise, I'm just gonna sit here with like my Spider-Man gray beard and just I don't know. Just say with great power comes great responsibility. Yeah.
As much as we've rebooted Spider-Man over and over and over again and had all these different multiverse options, there hasn't been a much screen time dedicated to older generation of like how Spider-Man ages when he's in his later years.
The closest we get, I think, is Into the Spider-Verse, which
that's
I don't know
what
if we'll cover, but definitely like, was it Peter B. Parker is somewhat that. You see some of the in a way that like you see the developments of what happens if he doesn't get with MJ or there is issues in that regard, and he makes some very poor financial decisions and buys a restaurant and then it goes under. You get someone who's kind of just very much like he's been through the paces, he's got all the experience, he knows how to be Spider-Man, he knows how it is to be Peter Parker, and now it's just okay, what do I do now? I guess I'll eat this pizza.
I love that movie. That's a good one too.
It's a good movie. I can't wait for the sequel for that, which maybe we'll cover Into the Spider-Verse before we get,
we
or
should.
maybe
I think
when we get a trailer.
Yeah. But you mentioned MJ. They didn't address any of our complaints with MJ after the first film. It suffers from the exact same problem in the second one.
Oh my goodness! The very first scene, well, maybe not the very first scene with MJ, because that's when they're surprise birthdaying him after he had like the worst day of his life, where he got fired by his pizza delivery job and then almost got fired by J. Jonah Jameson.
Yep.
And then he comes home, they're like, surprise, it's your birthday. You don't remember? He's like, no.
Right.
My day's been terrible. I'm supposed to smile now? Okay. But like even after that, when Peter's throwing away the garbage, we get another cringy scene between the two of them of just like, will they, won't they? And you have MJ being like, well, do you love me, Peter? And Peter's like, oh boy, do I, but I don't know. And then she says not too soon after, I'm seeing someone. We might get married. Maybe.
Yeah. Come on, MJ. Just pick one. Don't be all halvesy of like, yeah, I'm thinking about getting married to this astronaut, but also, are you still interested in me? Like, just, she likes to keep her doors open, I guess.
Oh my goodness. Throughout the whole movie, too. I mean, we get to the point where she's engaged, and then Peter finally becomes available because he's now not Spider-Man. He's like, how about you just leave him and be with me? And she's like, I don't think so. I think I like him. How wrong is that?
How?
Oh my goodness. They're made for each other. Like, we get all of like in Spider-Man 1, MJ being like, I kind of like Spider-Man and Pete a lot more than Harry and Flash while she's dating them. And then same thing happens kind of here, except with Peter. Now Peter's like, I'm fine with totally making you leave your fiance so that we can run off together. The dude
makes out with the girl in her wedding dress for a wedding that he is not a part of. And he kisses her. I was like, dude, boundaries, overlap, at least have a clean break. At least talks to J. Jonah's son, be like, hey, I'm having second thoughts. I'm getting cold feet. I think we need to wait on this. Give it like a month, maybe more, hopefully more. And then be like, so Peter, let's pick up where we left off, instead of just like running from the church in your wedding dress to your
in which the
high school crush.
The Jamesons probably paid for all of it as well with the astronaut and Daily Bugle money.
But they didn't open the caviar. Thank goodness.
They didn't open that. But it made me laugh when she's like, I've always been in your doorway, Pete. It's like, sure, MJ. Sure, you've always been in his doorway.
I didn't buy it at all either when she was like, I know you gotta be Spider-Man and you can't always be there, but I'll be here when you get back. I won't mind. I'll just be patient. I was like, no. That's gonna cause some tension in this relationship.
I was just waiting for Dickovich to come out and be like, give me rent while they're kissing or something like that.
Right. That's a nice dress. Can you pay me in rent? Something like that would have been a good way to end.
Oh, yeah. And then, of course, we end the movie with like MJ being a broodful girlfriend, bride, whatever she is at this point.
Yes.
Watching Spider-Man swing off into the sunset with a whole bunch of helicopters following him at a very low altitude in the city. I don't think they allowed that in 2004.
Anytime.
Yeah. At any time.
Right. How did you feel about Harry's character in this one?
He was very much like kind of the drunken friend that you have that's wandering around your house during a party. He's just angry.
Yeah.
Get me Spider-Man. I don't care. Get me Spider-Man. Almost like he's like a very poor version of J. Jonah from Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2. Where it's just like, instead of get me pictures of Spider-Man, it's just get me Spider-Man. I need to see him. I need to talk with him. Come on, Pete. You take pictures of him.
Right.
Tell me who he is.
It's kind of ruined him. He's becoming an alcoholic and he's falling into just desperately wanting to find out who Spider-Man is and willing to take drastic measures because, Doc Ock approaches him and he's like, you'll get your tritium if you get me Spider-Man, which I also thought was like a weird plot device because I was thinking, can't Doc Ock just kind of pin Harry against the wall and be like, no, give me tritium now. The deal is you get to live. Would have saved a lot of time, but oh well.
I like how it comes to the point where Doc Ock hangs him upside down from the building, which actually wasn't too bad of a scene. And it forces him to sell out his friend.
Yeah.
Not even sell out Spider-Man, sell out his friend because he knows his friend knows Spider-Man.
Right.
But then tells him as Doc Ock is going down the building or whatever, he's like, just don't hurt him.
Yeah.
Like, make a decision. Like, not too long ago, you were screaming at him at the, was it fundraising or whatever party that Jameson's son was having. Mm-hmm. And then you're just scolding Pete in front of everyone about how he's a terrible friend and all that. And now you're like, just don't hurt him, please.
Yeah. I also thought Peter I feel like Peter could have managed this Harry's hatred of Spider-Man better because they're at the birthday party and he's like, if you knew who he was, would you tell me? It's like, Peter, you're already lying. Just commit to the lie. Just be like, yeah, of course I would. I just don't know who he is though. But instead he's like,
I don't know, try be a good friend too. Just chat with him about it.
Yeah. Just be like, no, I'm so sorry, and of course I would tell you. But if you're not gonna tell him like everything you know, don't be all like mysterious about it when he asks you. Like, would you tell me? And Pete's response is just like, maybe. Like he gets all quiet and doesn't really want to answer the question. Basically, all but confirming, no, I wouldn't tell you, even if I knew who he was. But it's like, you know who he is, Pete. So just be honest.
Yeah. Definitely not a good friend right after. Well, I guess it's been 2 years since Osborn died. But still enough for Harry to still be very, very much brooding, very much grieving, still in the grieving process, still hasn't gotten over his dad's death and thinks that it's all Spider-Man's fault, which just sells the scene even more when Doc Ock brings Spider-Man to him and then he takes off the mask. He's like,
yeah,
it's Pete. And Pete's just like, we don't have time for this. Where's Doc Ock taking her? Where's MJ?
That also made me really, really mad. I was like, as soon as he found out who Spider-Man was, Pete should have explained the whole situation immediately. It wouldn't have taken long. He was just like, there's bigger problems to deal with right now. I was like, no, just say, okay, look, I didn't kill your father. He tried to kill me, and then he accidentally killed himself. Talk to your butler about this,
Talk to your butler about this.
Right.
Sounds like talk to your insurance provider about this pill.
Yeah. I only say that because I know what happens in 3, but we haven't watched it for the review yet. But I'm just like, the whole thing that sways Harry later on is just the idea that, oh, the wounds from your father were from his own
no, Spider-Man killed him.
No, he killed him.
Which was actually Pete. Pete did it. Pete's like, I don't like your dad. I'm going to kill him with his own glider.
Pete's giving him every reason to be mad at him because when he directly brings that up, he's like, let's not talk about that. And I was like, you're basically leading him to believe that you're the one who killed him. So that was frustrating. I didn't like that aspect. The plot had to keep moving.
I wrote a note at that point, which I summarized the scene as, screw your father, where's Doc Ock?
Yeah.
That's it. That's all Peter was looking for in that scene. He wasn't caring about his friend who just discovered his secret identity. Didn't care about anything else, which I guess being a hero kind of has some of its burdens of like, you got to go do the right thing real quickly or else things can go bad.
Sure.
But at the same time, there's some wiggle room. Like you said, there's some time to talk with your friend. I don't know. Maybe it could be worse than it is or easier than it is. But yeah.
It didn't have a sense of urgency to me. He was just like, there are bigger problems. He wasn't like, come on, no, we gotta go right now. It was just like, you could have taken the 30 seconds and explained the whole thing, just to at least give Harry something to think about. It's like, okay, he's denying it, so maybe I should think more into this. Is it in Pete's character to kill my dad, or wouldn't have taken long.
He doesn't know because Pete's just been ignoring him the whole movie.
Right.
Which
That's
I don't
true.
know how many days this composes, but at least like maybe it's a week of just Peter ignoring Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Which I mean, yeah, maybe Harry deserves some of it since Harry kind of took advantage of Peter a lot in the previous movie.
Yes.
And he probably did more as well during grade school and a little bit more of high school. So
True.
it stands to reason that maybe Peter's having some of that. He'll get over it. He always gets over it. He'll be fine, or he deserves it at this point. I don't know. Maybe it's not his character to say he deserves it, but enough for him to be like, Harry usually sorts things out. He'll sort this thing out.
Right.
And not at this point.
Nope. You know what shot made me laugh pretty uncontrollably was when Pete was walking somewhere and there's just a wall of MJ's face posted on like every square foot. They have a poster on against this building. And I was like, why would they do that? Like, marketing is just the same poster like 80 times in a row, thinking that's going to make people go watch the play. It was just like a comic amount of advertising the same thing over and over again. And I was like, oh my God.
It's a really weird, like, I mean, you think about actors, right? You think about how famous they are, or at least maybe Broadway as well. At least I've been to Broadway once.
Yeah.
I forget what I watched. Was it? I don't know.
Wasn't
Anyways,
memorable.
well, it wasn't as memorable. I remember going to the theater. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
this is Broadway. But at least like the level at which MJ is considered a actor is always like shifting, right? You get like in Spider-Man 1, it's like, I think I might go into acting. It's like, okay. And then Spider-Man 2, yeah, maybe it's been 2 years, but like now she's acting in some sort of way to where she's got posters of her. So it's like, oh, she's recognizable and this is what's selling. Or maybe they just want a pretty face on the billboard or whatever.
Sure.
But it goes down to like, oh, I mean, she's not a good actor, but it works. And then we later see in Spider-Man 3, it's like, she's a very terrible actor. She can't carry her voice down a whole entire like concert hall for some reason now. Like, she's terrible. Like, where are we going, like, in terms of how skilled she is as an actor is always like, it's a moving scale, and I can never tell when like a company's actually saying, oh yeah, MJ is a really great actor, this is why she deserves her face plastered on the wall. It seems more of just the writers and whoever did the set design just being like, oh yes, we put pictures of MJ so that Peter is like, oh, I'm being terrible, or oh yeah, that's right, I love MJ, or oh, now I'm even more conflicted about being Spider-Man, which yeah, but still, it's all over the place. It's all over the place for me.
Yeah, I did not. At least the shots they showed her of being an actress were not very impressive to me, because she like forgets her lines like halfway through, and she just starts staring off, and everyone's like, "Come on, let's go!" Like
the
next
director's
line.
just like, words. Here are the words. Say the words.
Right.
The words.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh man, she would have been sacked right after that." That's terrible.
Just because she saw Pete in the audience and she's like, oh, he finally made it. Wow.
Wasn't expecting this.
He does care.
We need to get chow mein later.
So he could try to convince me to run off with him.
Yes. That line made me laugh so hard. He was just like, you want to get some chow mein? It was so like out of left field. It was one of those classic like Tobey Maguire cringe moments for me. But it's all redeemed by Jay Jonah's laugh after
that's
asking
like at
to
the
be
beginning.
paid in advance. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I get a what does he say? Like a forward on the deposit or something like that?
Can you pay me in advance? And he just
that's what it is.
That's such a classic laugh. I love it so much.
You're serious?
That is some A+ J.K. Simmons acting right there. He got that just ridiculous amount of laughter. That squeal in his voice is just so perfect. We had to rewind that and rewatch it. They couldn't help it.
Every single word again that they give J.K. Simmons to say as J. Jonah Jameson is really funny. Like one of them that quickly goes past in the conversation is I think Betty Brant saying, "Oh, your wife lost her checkbook," and he's like, "Good."
Yes, that role was perfect, and no one else can even try. There's just no point. Yeah, that's why they're just getting him back, and I think they had him back in Far From Home, right?
Yeah, at the very end, I think at the end credits scene, which
I was like, "Yep,
we'll probably get to at one point," but yeah, he's back.
Perfect.
Yeah,
that's
it
all
still
we
works.
I loved
did
the. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
No, after you.
He says no. I loved this the creepy like horror scene where Doc first loses his mind and the arms are just going crazy on all the surgeons and stuff. I mean, it was a little hilarious when they had like a surgical grade chainsaw, which I thought was funny. It was like all glossy and shimmering, and one of the surgeons says something like, "Anybody remember being in auto class?" And
everyone just giggles.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a serious situation. Like, this man is augmented with metal arms and has pins fused to his spine that you just said. He has needles fused to his spine, and you're just like, remember shop class? And then obligatory women screaming shortly after when the arms start killing everyone.
Ladies' nails digging up the floor. Like, I was like, dang, this is kind of scary all of a sudden. I thought this was kind of a kid's movie somewhat, but took a dark turn very quickly. But
I wrote down at that point, it's a horror movie at this point. Just
yes.
What?
I don't know if you've ever seen Drag Me to Hell, but that's also a Sam Raimi movie, but it's more horror focused, but it is hilarious. It is like, I laugh throughout. I can't tell if it's intentional or unintentional, but it carries a lot of that Spider-Man vibe of things being like really disturbing, like that scene, but also kind of comical, like simultaneously. It's a very weird tone that he's able to carry. I think better than most directors, but yeah, it's kind of a out of place scene relative to the rest of the film. It's really dark.
I think what made me laugh or provided some levity for me was immediately after he escapes the hospital. Like, he's out in the street just like, what's going on? Oh, I've got these arms. And then all of a sudden, just a car's driving at him. Like, you don't see this man as you're driving down the street, which, first of all, evening. Second of all, empty street.
Right.
Okay, whatever, New York. And then he accidentally, he goes, and then the arms just go, just flip the car. It's like, how do you accidentally flip a car? I guess the arms are thinking on their own.
Yeah.
But it just made me laugh in the fact that, like, the man just, it's a weird situation that they put him in. Like, he just escaped this crazy situation where these arms murdered everyone, and then all of a sudden, oh no, I'm gonna get ran over by a car, and then the car flips.
You're right. What was that driver thinking? They weren't. Maybe they were looking somewhere else or something. But yeah,
they can't be texting on their phone because it's not that time yet where we've got smartphones. So
that's true. Maybe they thought running into him would be a better idea than swerving or braking. They were like, let's just floor it, see what happens.
Yeah. Another discontinuity that I noted was the end scene where Spider-Man is fighting Doc Ock in the water shed or whatever, and like they end up in the, either he does or they both do at one point, they end up underneath the sun contraption, and like they're standing in the water. Yeah, they're standing in the water fighting. It's like, okay, this is kind of cool, but then like shortly after, when Doc Ock ends up going under with the sun, the shallow water becomes very, very deep, and he starts sinking into it. And
that's
like, you
true.
See, like, when like the sun thing is falling into the water, like it's sinking down straight down. It's not like going out and down. It's just going straight down.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just kind of weird in terms of continuity of like, it's shallow, but now it's really deep. Okay. Whatever.
I also feel like technicality wise, putting that reactor under the river wouldn't have done anything. Probably just would have vaporized all the water, and then the rest of the city would have exploded. But
I forget how much tritium he took, but it was enough. Like, I think I noted, yeah, it's a lot of tritium they took, so
25
however
pounds.
much.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he initially said like he used a few grams in the initial one, the initial test. And then I converted 25 pounds in the whole entire Earth is what they said.
Right.
There's only
They've checked
25
every
pounds of
square
stuff.
meter of the planet. That's all they could find.
Only 25 pounds, which is only 11 kilograms. And if you're using a few grams of it, like let's just say they use 0.33 grams, because if you convert pounds to kilograms, you get, was it 25 pounds is equal to 11.34 kilograms. So initially he only used like a third of a kilogram, and then now he's like, yeah, we'll use the rest of the 11 now. It doesn't matter.
Right, we could just do this, get this over with. But I still wonder to myself, like he was all motivated by trying to get this reactor working. Imagine if it worked. Like, is he gonna go back to the city and be like, hey everyone, you want to hook this up to the grid? Like,
he can't. He's stuck there because he has to contain it.
Oh, it's very nonsensical.
Whole entire, it doesn't, like, this whole, like, I get it's a way for him to like have giant metal arms on him is to like contain it, but it doesn't make sense in the long term. Like, here's a demonstration. Okay, it makes sense in a demonstration with the arms containing the magnetic fields bursting out of the sun. But it doesn't make sense when, like, let's just say Otto's wife is watching her husband just stand there for like 8 hours straight while these arms are holding the magnetic beams
he has to
away.
eat
Like,
and go to the bathroom and all that.
yeah,
Like, why
go to
not?
the bathroom at that point?
Why not just make a dedicated robot, like a machine with the arms? Like, what's the advantage to? This was another problem my wife kept bringing up. Is like, wouldn't these arms make you like fall over backwards all the time? You'd have like all this weight hanging off your back. Like, how would you distribute that evenly?
Unless they're hanging forward. If they're always, well, not forward. If they're a little bit, it's all about center of mass and center of gravity.
Oh,
if you can manage that, it's fine. Which that's the way that you do it. But yeah, there's a lot of scenes where they're kind of just hanging out behind him. And you're like, he's going back.
Yeah. I don't know how your legs could take all that weight on your back, but so motivations are very flawed, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
And he kind of doesn't Pete just kind of talk to him out of it?
He says the magic, well, yeah, he talks to him saying, well, no, Peter gets his mask taken off, or he takes his mask off, which was burnt earlier in the movie from a fire that Doc put on him, or he went through a fire or whatever.
Right.
No, he went through a fire without the suit, but his mask got burned at one point right before the train scene. And then he takes it off during the boat scene, which his suit's fine or semi-burn or whatever. And then Alfred Molina's like, oh, it's Peter.
Yeah.
Never mind. And then Peter's like, I think it's corrupting your mind or whatever, these arms, or maybe
they
Doc
have an
Ock says
intervention.
that. Yeah, and so then Doc Ock's just like, wait, listen to me. No, listen to me. And then the arms finally listen to him. It's like, that was not really a crazy hill to like climb up and conquer.
Needed a good talking to.
All you just need to do is say the magic words 3 times, and that's it.
You needed a good powwow with the arms, and then he's like, oh, wait a minute, this is a horrible idea. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
Which made me even more confused with how they're going to do Doc Ock in No Way Home, because it made me think, like, so he dies at the end of this.
He drowns in the river unless he saves himself, but then...
So are they going to find Doc Ock, like, mid Spider-Man 2 plot where he's still looking for tritium, or is it just an alternate universe?
I think it's an alternate universe
where
which,
Doc Ock survives for like years instead of a week, or
just happens later. Maybe he figures it out later, and then it's still kind of like, even if you delay the inevitable, it's still going to happen, right? So like, even if somehow it just doesn't work out initially, like in the Spider-Man 2 timeline of just, oh, we didn't get the arms to work or whatever, and then maybe later on he's so consumed by the fact that the arms didn't work that he makes the arms work, but now he's older. It could be that.
That makes more sense.
All I know is that MJ is a very terrible person during that scene for
Yes.
not moving out of the way from a giant wall that's falling on her. And then Peter's just like, I'll save you. And then she's just like,
No, he
I'm
screams.
No.
That's what made me laugh so hard was that Maguire scream. It's the walls falling. Like his first reaction isn't to move. His first reaction is, ah! Oh my god, it was so good.
And then he goes, holds on to the wall, and then she just sits there. Nothing happens. She's just staring at him while he's bearing the weight of this whole
That
entire
looks heavy.
wall. And then it happens again. Like, he gets the wall out of the way, or he moves her out of the way, and then, like, a giant rolling metal thing is coming their way, and she's just like, what do we do?
What
and
do
he's like, what do we do? I guess we jump now.
Yes.
Like,
she really is pretty useless.
she's very useless, and
She's not a good girlfriend. She's not a good love interest. She's not a good actress. And she's not smart enough to get out of harm's way. So
that's what disappoints me in this series. Like, they treat MJ a little bit more like a damsel in distress the whole entire time.
Yeah,
where
they do.
in Tom Holland's universe, she's very much like an independent woman who does her own, like, casing of a situation. Like,
I think even in the Andrew Garfield one, she's more
that's
wise
Gwen
or-
Stacy.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. I was just thinking love interest.
Well, yeah, even still, like, the love interest in Andrew Garfield's, like, mounds and mounds of more, like, smarts, or at least, like, isn't damsel in distress all the time. Is very
She's
much
Einstein.
Like,
Gwen Stacy is Einstein compared to MJ.
I'm going to help you as much as possible, even though you don't want me to help you.
Yes. Yes.
And the same with Zendaya's MJ. Very much just like, I don't care what you're doing. I'm just trying to find out the truth because I don't want to. I don't want to feel crazy anymore.
Yeah, not a damsel at all. I think all the future Spider-Man films like picked up on how bad MJ was in the Raimi films, and they were like, okay, let's do anything but that. Do the exact opposite of what they did there, which was good. It was smart.
Somehow, surprisingly, in this movie, kind of going back a little bit, I forgot about, when watching this movie, I forgot about the train scene. It totally blew over my mind. I
forgot Joey Diaz was in it.
I wasn't expecting it, and then suddenly, Peter has powers after being pushed by Doc Ock after a car goes through the coffee bar or whatever that he and MJ are at. But
that was trippy.
He goes to, I forget whether he confronts Otto somewhere, but it turns into the train fight scene.
Yes.
Maybe it's after the clock fight scene.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a clock fight scene and then turns into the train
fight
scene. The clock tower fight, whatever.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah, but then it turns into the train scene, which I'm like, oh yeah, this was a thing, and you get all the interesting choices that they make of, like, fighting on top of a train. It's like, oh, that's cool, and then being knocked off of a train, having to swing by the buildings and the train.
And why didn't they slow it down sooner?
Because the controls broke. Otto broke the controls.
Point, I guess. Yeah. Just the face he makes when he's got his arms stretched across the front still makes me laugh. Where he's just like, and I was like, I don't know how feasible this is, but it needed some peril to go through. I think it's a sweet idea that all of the citizens would, like, keep his identity secret, but totally not believable. Like, that would absolutely never happen.
That would leak. Except I guess they're not too into photo cameras yet.
That's true. There weren't many cameras or smartphones, but I guess the bright side is no one really knew who Peter Parker was. They saw his face and they were like, it's some guy. Okay.
No. They say he's just a kid. And it's like,
right.
This isn't a kid.
Yeah. He's just a 25-year-old kid.
He's just a 25. Well, yeah, I guess to some, 25 is very much a kid. Other times it's, dude, he's an adult. What are you doing? And then the kids give him his mask back after it's like, that mask got torn off on top of the train.
Yeah.
How did
They
these
found
kids
it
get this
somehow.
mask?
I thought it was a sweet scene though. It was like, oh, the spirit of New York. That's something they tried to capture in the first one too, where they're throwing stuff at Green Goblin. They're like, you mess with all of us. And this one, they're like, we got you, Spider-Man. We're not gonna tell anybody that it's some white kid with brown hair. Like, I don't know, who are they gonna tell? Like, what did they tell?
I did like
I
the
know what he looks
realism,
like.
or I did like the was it the in-universe realism that they kind of provide that scene though as well. They're like, you're gonna have to go through us to get to him when like Doc Ock comes to get Spider-Man. They're like, you're gonna have to go
Yes.
through us, and Doc Ock's just like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah. He's like, okay, I'll go through all of you. That was great.
Through all of you, okay.
But
Yeah, it definitely makes him. It makes him more imposing as a villain. Like he
Yes.
doesn't care. Like Green Goblin is like, I don't know what to do at this point. Meanwhile, Doc Ock's just like, I know what to do. Just get out of my way. I gotta get my tritium. I don't
Right.
care about this.
He's
I
a
don't
man
care
on a
about you.
mission. he's got places to be. That was a good juxtaposition. But
Yeah.
I feel like Alfred Molina's an underrated actor. This is probably one of his largest roles, or the roles that people remember him for. I don't know, and I don't know if it is the same for you, but for me at least, Doc Ock is like the most iconic, like standout Spider-Man villain I can think of. When I go back through all the Spider-Man films, there's a lot of things I like about the Tom Holland one, but Mysterio and Vulture don't leave as lasting of an impact as he did. I don't know why. There's just something memorable, and maybe it was the soundtrack that stood out to me or something, but when I think Spider-Man, I think like going up against Doc Ock. Like that's the first thing I think of.
Yeah. I could see that. I usually think of like Green Goblin when I think of Spider-Man,
That's
just
another
the
one.
typical anti-hero.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, probably afterward Doc Ock. But I'd say Mysterio is very close in that for me.
Okay.
If once we get to Far From Home, I
Yeah.
loved Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, and what they brought as Mysterio it wasn't mystical, which
Yeah.
was an interesting way that they approached it, because Mysterio is very mystical in a way, even though that
Right.
he's a lot of like trick up the sleeve or card up the sleeve.
They pulled a Mandarin.
They pulled a Mandarin, which I don't know if you've seen Shang-Chi, but
Not
they
yet.
comment on some of that as well in the movie, and it's pretty funny and pretty good. But yeah, he's very much an iconic villain. I'd agree. I think he deserved a little bit more screen time, or at least like kind of like what you said at the beginning of the podcast, just a little bit more like motivation for him. Like,
Right.
why is he? I get like maybe he's a crazy scientist and he's so fixed on getting his invention working of like free sustainable energy, and it just consumes him to the point where he's robbing banks and killing people and derailing trains just to like make a mini sun that provides energy.
He's like, think of the electric cars we could charge with this. He's got to be motivated by that energy.
There's this guy called Elon Musk, and he's coming up with this company. We really need to get this off the ground right now.
He's just really passionate about electric vehicles.
Peter, I've seen the future. There's a thing called the Cybertruck. We need to get this done now.
Yeah. Yeah.
This will solve all the energy issues.
Little more motivation, more reasons for things happening instead of just, oh, my powers are gone, or that kind of thing would have probably helped this film a lot. Talking about it now makes me think 7 out of 8 is too high. I might be closer to 6, but I still enjoyed it. I think I said something similar about the last film. Is like, even when it's bad, I'm laughing. So I'm having a good time, regardless of if the plot or anything makes sense, because I think these movies have aged well for unintentional reasons. So I don't know. Like they didn't intend for these parts of the movie to be quotable or funny, but they did. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess kind of brings in the question, is the movie good because the director and the cast and all of that intentionally made those choices? Or were they unintentional and it's all just a matter of comedy is equal to tragedy plus time or times time, however you do that equation for comedy? Does it fall under it's a good movie and it stands the test of time, or it's a bad movie, but because it's bad in a lot of ways that are humorous, it's a good movie just because there's so many things you could take out of it that were very questionable decisions. Especially like scenes where you've got like Spider-Man in an elevator because he can't swing anymore.
That's right.
And then you just get a random conversation with the dude. He's like, "Oh, nice cosplay," or whatever. And he's like, "It rides up in the crotch." It's like, why did you make that decision to say that?
He wanted to tell some stranger. I just thought I'd let you know this suit I made rides up in the crotch a bit. I needed to say something. Yeah, it was kind of comedic. It probably made for a good marketing material at the time.
Yeah, especially with like doing the backflip over a car, and then the kids are like, "Whoa, how'd you do that, sir?"
Oh,
and
yeah.
Peter's just like, "Eating your vegetables or fruits and vegetables, kids."
That's what my mom always says. That was the joke
Yeah.
that got my wife to laugh the hardest. That's what my mom says. She thought that was good. I was like, okay, there you go. Good joke. You made it. Well done.
My dark mind just jumps to the idea of like the kids eat a whole bunch of vegetables and then go out into the street and try doing a backflip.
Yeah, just the next day, these kids are just nonstop broccoli. It's like shaped their life. They turn into, workout and protein addicts. They're just like.
Oh, I was thinking more of the darker reality of it, where they eat a whole bunch of vegetables in one day as kids, and then they go out into the street and try doing backflips over cars and end up getting completely destroyed.
Oh my god! Another thought I've never considered is like the spider that bit Peter. How many people could that spider have bit?
A Spider-Verse amount.
Yeah, like that one spider
apparently.
in the single universe could have bit like 40 people, all of which would have had Spidey powers the next day.
Yeah, that's kind of the loose end, right? I mean, in The Amazing Spider-Man, they tie it up almost immediately. He kills the spider, I believe, right there.
Yes.
When it bites him. Or
yes.
Maybe I'm thinking of Into the Spider-Verse, one or the other. Spider's killed immediately.
Yeah.
Done. In this, they're like, spider bit him and then just ran away. Like, it's not like
never
a
to
bee
bite again.
Yeah. It's not like a bee where the bee stings you and then dies a couple minutes or hours later because it can't survive without its stinger. No, that spider's walking around. You probably have Miles Morales, who's very cringy and weird in this universe eventually.
Yes.
Bitten by the same spider, likely.
Yeah.
Maybe it bites, what's it called? It bites Ursula. Was it Dickovich's daughter?
Oh, there you go.
There. Now she has super cooking and web slinging abilities.
She makes amazing cookies now. Yeah.
Why didn't Peter end up with her? That's
I know. That's what my wife was saying. We were watching it, and she was like, look, she's free. MJ's an idiot. She's right across the hallway. She seems fine.
It's a great way to get out of rent.
Yeah. You won't have to pay rent if you marry her. You're right. They were like kind of setting something up there almost. Didn't they come over and have cake and sit awkwardly across from each other?
Is that in this one? I think so, yeah.
One of them. They're just like...
Either this one or the next one. They get really close as well. You're like...
Do something. I don't know. But MJ's not it, Pete. So
or Betty Brant given some... what's it called? Indications that she might be interested at the very beginning of this film as well. Like touching his chin. Like, chin up. Everything will be okay.
Right.
Like...
Chin up, Pete.
Okay. I guess this is just serving as... Peter is the worst person ever, and everyone hates him because he's so nerdy and gross and weird. But also, terrible. He's cute.
But he's cute. Right. Don't forget he's cute. Oh man. Well, do
Any
you have any
final thoughts?
closing
I
thoughts?
beat you to it.
Dang it. Okay, you asked first, so I thoroughly enjoyed it despite all of its issues, and I I believe I will watch it many times again, just because of how quotable it is, and I'm thankful for the memes it's birthed. But as a film, it was, I think, kind of classic. Popcorn movie theater type thing where you don't give it much thought. They needed something. People needed something to go watch for the weekend, and this came out, and it was probably fairly enjoyable at the time. It was not an airtight plot. It was not a flawless script, but it gave people probably what they wanted, which was Spider-Man fighting Doc Ock with decent production value. The budget was likely a bit higher. I think the animation was a lot better this time around. No skeleton 3D falling apart shots. And I thought Doc Ock was a bit more of a serious, scary villain than Green Goblin, which felt a bit more comical for me. So for those reasons, I consider it like a notable improvement. It was like a step up on the first, but still keeping that campy, cheesy aspect. But yeah, you kind of need that with a character like this. So 6.5 out of 8. Final answer.
Wow. Jumped down a whole half point. Yeah, a lot of the things that you said, I definitely agree with in regards to. I will eventually watch this movie again for how much I did not like it. Me and my wife were both kind of at the end of the movie like, thank goodness this is over.
Finally.
Sadly. I was very kind of sad at that point. It was like, I really thought this movie was a whole lot better than I remember. A lot of that nostalgia kind of kicked in of, Doc Ock is in this, and you get this scene, that scene. It's all the things that you remember, but then you forget a lot about the in-between stuff that isn't so interesting or just drags you along. Like, Peter is walking through the street and then gets weird looks. Okay.
Yeah.
But we get that for like 10 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Does it stand the test of time? No. Does it still provide enjoyment for people? Yeah. Which is why I think it deserves a 5 or 5.5 in my opinion for my
There goes
rating.
my half point. It went to Mike's score.
Yeah. Only because it's still movies are there for entertainment. They're there for people to enjoy. And even movies that when they come out initially, there's been a lot of them where I can't think of. Okay, I say there's a lot and then I can't think of them, but there is a notable few movies that maybe did not do so great when they first released, and then years later they get picked up and people are like, this was really good, or this is really funny, or this is very entertaining. And I guess maybe that's the path that Spider-Man 2 falls in. Like, it could have been passed off, like you said initially when it came out, as that was an entertaining movie, I guess. And now in 2021, our culture is just based around my back.
Yeah.
And everything
I'm going to put
else
some dirt in your eye. Yeah.
That's the next movie, but yeah. But yeah. I don't know. It really makes me hope that I don't forget, or at least I haven't forgotten, how interesting Spider-Man 3 will be when we review that.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Week or whatever release order I'm putting these in terms of
currently
timing.
The only third Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, well,
For now.
I guess so. Yeah, until December 17th when we finally get the third Spider-Man movie.
Finally, another third. They made it.
Maybe we could get Andrew Garfield back in the suit again and have him do Amazing Spider-Man, which no one asked for.
Yeah. Right. That's fair.
Yeah.
Cool.
Alrighty. Well, that was Spider-Man 2. Thanks again for joining us on this crazy adventure, and we'll catch you next time when we review Spider-Man 3 with a very, very questionable Venom and Sandman and a dancing Peter Parker. Anyways,
Get a load of this.
take care.
Bye bye.